there, and welcome to Unveil Your Brilliance with Angilie Kapoor here on the Win-Win Women TV network, where each week we explore helping you to break free from the illusions that are holding you back. My name is Angilie Kapoor. I am your host. I am also a conscious leadership coach, as well as a multi-book author, inspirational speaker, and the founder of my leadership coaching company, Oversight Global. Now, at Oversight Global, we are on a mission to address the consciousness crisis in the world, one leader at a time. So let me read you this quote. When the mirror of my life is polished by your love, the mirror of the world is no longer dull and dark. Now, this is a quote by the 13th century poet Rumi. Aren't those some powerful words that really make you think? Now, as always, I like to share this quote with you that relates to a topic of our episode discussion. And this week is no different. Now, on today's episode, we have a truly inspiring guest joining us to share her experience, which is a truly horrific experience, and the wisdom and insights that experience gave her, and how she chose to be empowered and help others from her ordeal in which she is doing today. But before I bring her on, again, just a friendly reminder to keep a lookout for our episode segments, our show pillars, which we make sure we touch on each week. Brilliant mindset, breaking free, and brilliant strategies during our discussion. So without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome our special guest for today, Amy Thurman, onto the show. Now, I am so thrilled to have our guest for today here with us. Now, before I bring her on, let me tell you a bit about her. So, Amy Thurman is the owner of Polish the Mirror, a co-author of the international best-selling book, Resilience AF, Stories of Resilience, and is an inspirational speaker, podcast host, and a disabled entrepreneur. Now, today, Amy is here to share her inspiring story of resilience and empowerment after a life-changing accident that left her with a broken neck. With her unwavering determination and strong will, Amy overcame physical limitations and mental challenges and now helps others through her business and inspirational speaking. So hold on to your seats, get ready to be inspired, educated, and uplifted as we welcome the incredible Amy Thurman to the show. Amy, welcome to Unveil Your Brilliance. Thank you for being here today.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. I'm just so honored to be here. I really, really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. I'm honored to have you here. So, I know that, people are probably wondering, how did the broken neck happen and how did you live? Was it 10 years with that? So, yeah, could you kind of just start off by, giving us a little bit more information on how that kind of happened and what your ordeal was like?
Absolutely. It's a very extensive story. That's why I put it into a book. And so I will try to give you the shortest version I can. But basically in 2014, which it was 10 years ago, I
Mhm.
was working at a major university. I have 3 kids. I was doing the mom thing, running them everywhere. And I was also volunteering. If you've ever worked at a university, you know it's very many hours. And so I was always doing something.
Mhm.
And one night I didn't feel well, so I got up and ended up passing out, and I landed on my face on the hardwood floor.
Oh, man.
And the impact from that sheared my brainstem, caused a traumatic brain injury, and it actually broke my neck, but that went undetected for 6 months. And so for the nearly the first year after that, I had to lay flat in a bed for 23 hours a day. I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, I couldn't hear or see correctly, and I could no longer take myself to the restroom. And so I went from literally doing everything one day to the very next day, I couldn't even take myself to the restroom. That's in short, that's what happened.
Yeah, so I do want to ask you about so you were actually bedridden for a year, I think is that right?
It was about 9 months before I could have the surgery to repair my neck. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, what was going through your mind? Like you said, I mean, the day before you were running around doing everything, and then all of a sudden you find yourself like in bed, not being able to do anything, literally. So, I mean, what was kind of going through your mind?
It was as you can imagine, a deep, deep, dark place that I would never
Right.
wish on anyone. I have always been a really, really independent person, and I
Mhm.
don't like to ask for help. I like to do everything myself because I have a determined spirit and I can do it. So to not be able to do anything for myself was literally like a form of torture for me.
Right.
And so I was so focused on, my thoughts were so negative because all I wanted to do was get back to the life I had before. I just
Hmm.
wanted to be able to do anything, something that I could do before, but I couldn't. I couldn't do any of it. And so I did. I went into this deep, deep, dark place. I felt like such a burden to my family. They had to do everything for me. My kids were in shock because I was literally like dead to them. My husband said it was like living in a nursing home because they had to be quiet, it had to be dark. I began to pray, and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed that I would die because I was not living. I was merely existing. And I
Hmm.
knew I had enough pain medication to make it happen, and I fully intended to use that.
Oh, wow.
And so I was in a really, really dark, deep place because that's where my focus was. That's where my thinking was
Right.
was living.
Right, right. So what turned that around for you? I mean, obviously you kind of went from that super dark place to almost taking your own life to be to a point to where you're like, you know what? Maybe there is something that I can do to help people from this ordeal. So what was that turning point for you? What was that like?
If you've ever been in a deep, dark place, which most people have, you will
Right.
understand that it's like living in a fog, that there's
Mhm.
really, your thinking is really muddy. You just can't, you don't think clearly because I had never had those kind of thoughts before. And so the only way I know how to explain what happened was I just had this moment of clarity where the fog lifted, the mud was gone, and I could think so clearly. And I remember thinking, what if I don't have to die? What if I can make a different choice? And
Mhm.
up till that moment, I didn't think I had a choice. I thought this was the only way to make to lift the burden from myself and from my family. And this thought said, what if I use the same energy I'm using trying so hard to die and turn it around and fight to live instead? Maybe I can use my experience to help other people if I can get better.
Mhm.
And that shocked me enough to pull me out of that, and I wrestled with it, but it was the peace. Obviously, I didn't want to hurt my family, but it was the peace that said, what if I can use this experience to help other people? That
Yeah.
really, really motivated me and caused me to literally switch my thinking to, okay, I'm now going to use my story to help other people. I'm determined to get better, and I'm going to use my experience to help other people. And that's what I get to do now.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love how you said that you said to yourself, you know, what if I use the same energy that I'm using to be in this dark place and flip that around and use that same energy to, you know, be more positive? I think that, you know, that's important. I talk about this quite a bit in talking to people about, you know, their negative versus positive thinking is, you know, complaining is the same energy that you use is being grateful and practicing gratitude. So I love that you know, mentioned that way. Is that something that, you know, you also talk about today in your work and helping others?
Absolutely. And most people don't understand that they have a choice. There's
Right.
always a choice. It just depends on your perspective. And that's what you're saying, that which way are you looking at it? Are you looking at it in a complaining way? Are
Hmm.
you looking at it from a more positive, uplifting way? The energy is the same. It's just which one are you going to choose? Because we always have a choice. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, yeah, I love that too, that you know, also mentioned that we have a choice. And you're right. Most people don't recognize that even though you're put in, especially, you know, the type of situation that you were put in, you think that you don't have a choice, but you're right, you totally do. And I think that, you know, if everybody else could kind of recognize that whatever situation they're in, however dire it might be, they have a choice, you know. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love that as
Yes.
well. So let's talk about your book. So it's called Finding My Hero Within, a journey from incapacitation to empowerment. And it's coming out Friday, April 26th. So can you tell us a little bit more about what people can expect when they read the book and what you're hoping to accomplish with it?
Absolutely. It's my 10-year journey of going from being completely incapacitated to now living an empowered life. And
Mhm.
it's a roller coaster of exactly what I went through, fighting my way through the medical system to find someone who could figure out what was wrong with me because no one could figure out why I couldn't lift my head off the bed.
Oh, wow.
And I want to say that, people ask me this all the time, like, do you blame your medical team? And I do not. They were doing what they were trained to do. I just had to find the right person that was trained to look for the injury that I had.
Right.
And so that's what it's about. It's my fight, my battle to make it through all of this and to not give up and to push my way through until I found the answer. It can also serve as a guidebook for people who are in adversity, who want to embrace their authentic selves
Right.
as well, or who need encouragement, who need inspiration. Because as you said, my business is called Polish the Mirror, and I have a philosophy and a practice where I use polish the mirror. And so I've included a few of those tips in there, and it actually pre-launched a couple days ago. And so I have had so many people contacting me after they have read it, just saying, I'm sharing this with someone who lives with chronic illness. I'm sharing this with my sister who is dealing with depression. And
Mhm.
but this is what people are telling me, that it encourages you. It makes you realize I don't need to make excuses anymore. Like if
Right.
Amy did all of this and made it through all of that, maybe there is more power that resides within me. And I really, really like to make the point that I live with a disability. Like I have lived the past 10 years with a broken neck. I can only hold my head up for a few hours at a time and I have to rest a lot. And so I like to point that out because people who live with disabilities, there's a stigma around that. And, we are made to feel like we are not as valuable, that we are not as worthy, that then as able-bodied people. And it's just simply not true. And so I
Mhm.
want to prove that point as well, that we have just as much value and we have just as much to offer as able-bodied people do.
No, I love that. I love that. I love that you mentioned that. I mean, obviously, you need to listen to your body and, honor when you need to give yourself grace or rest and things like that. But you're still able to do things. I mean, obviously, you're still able to empower people and change people's lives because that's what you're doing now. So I love that you mentioned that. So I mentioned this to you the first time we talked that I love the name of your company and the motto that you use, polish the mirror. So in your book, you mentioned, polish the mirror of your life. So how did you kind of come up with that? How did that kind of, come into your life and how do you utilize that now? And what does that kind of, mean, especially for the women who are watching, Unveil Your Brilliance?
Yeah, absolutely. It's when I was in that bed and I chose to fight to live instead of fighting so hard to die. I There was so much negativity in my mind
Hmm.
from my background in education and social work. I knew that I couldn't just stop that. Like you can't just stop something. You have to replace it with something intentionally.
Yes.
And so I knew the negativity had to stop, but I knew I had to replace it with something. And so I asked my husband to load podcasts and audiobooks into my iPod. Yes, it was that long ago. And I put my earbuds in, I turned it down really, really low so my brain could handle it. And I began pouring in teachings from Dr. Wayne Dyer, Tony Robbins, Rumi, and all of those luminaries.
Hmm.
And that's when I came across the wisdom of Rumi. And it was this poem that struck me that caused me to just literally my brain to freeze because it hit me so deeply. And it
Hmm.
goes like this: Ye who seek God apart, that which you seek thou art. If you wish to seek the beloved's face, polish the mirror and gaze into that space. And that spoke to me on such a deep level. It
Hmm.
told me that every answer I seek can be found within. I
Right.
don't have to look outside myself for the answers. We're all waiting for our knight in shining armor to come rescue us, to come save us, to come make this life better. But we don't have to. The person that you have been searching for all of your life is in the mirror. that is the person who's going to come rescue you. And that's why my book is called Finding My Hero Within,
Mhm.
because that's what I was able to do. Polish the mirror, learn to recognize your soul, your authentic self, and the messages that it's sending you, because it's sending you messages all the time.
Right.
We either ignore them or we don't know how to recognize them. And so that's what the Polish the Mirror philosophy is. It's getting in touch with your soul, your authentic self, and understanding how to recognize and understand the messages that it's sending you, because they are powerful. They are so, so powerful.
Right, right. I love that. Yeah, I have a similar approach, but I call it your inner phenomenal leader. But it's the
Oh,
same,
I love
yeah,
it.
it's the same thing, because I originally started working with workplace managers and helping them to develop their leadership skills. And my journey was, as soon as I really worked on discovering me and learning more about me and becoming a leader to myself and in my own life, I discovered that I was able to better effectively lead others. And again, like you were saying, we are always externally looking for things that we think that we need. I know for me, I was reading all kinds of books on how to communicate better or, emotional intelligence and stuff like that. But, the more that I went on my self discovery journey and self awareness journey, I recognized that the better that I was able to communicate with myself or self-regulate my own emotions, I was able to do that with other people. So you're totally right. I mean, I've been on that same journey where you discover that everything that you need, you actually have within you already. You just need to learn how to tap into that. So I love that you are doing that with Polish the Mirror. And I love that poem by Romy. That's amazing. I'll have to look that up
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, he's amazing. That
Yeah,
thank you for that. I like to make the point too that it doesn't mean that you don't need other people,
right.
because when we're talking about everything we have can be found within, it doesn't mean that we don't need a community. It just means that it's like the mask on an airplane,
Yes.
that we are meeting our own needs so that we can be a better member of the community. We can go then help other people from a better, more authentic way, instead of always needing something, which we have needs, don't get me wrong,
Right.
but we're able to meet most of those ourselves so that we can help each other in a better way.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, I totally agree with that as well. So let's talk about. I know that you have in your book, you mentioned that it can be used as a guidebook for people who are really seeking to learn about their authentic selves and, really discover how to live a life that they really love. So can you kind of give us like one or two strategies of maybe things that people will find in your book that they can start utilizing to be able to do that?
Absolutely. I do list a couple in there. And the first one is to be willing to feel your feelings. That is
Mm,
such a difficult thing.
yes.
And we work so hard to suppress our feelings and to push them down. And we fold them neatly and nicely and we tuck them down way down in there so that they will never surface again.
Hmm.
And that is not the way to get to the life that you want to live. We have to be willing to open ourselves up to allow those emotions to surface, because in all honesty, our emotional system is part of our communication system.
Right.
Emotions are there to send us a message, and if we don't receive the message and we push it down, it keeps trying to send us the message over and over in different ways,
Hmm.
and we become frustrated when we're actually causing the problem.
Right.
And so we have to be open to feeling our feelings. And that's the very first thing that I mentioned in the Polish the Mirror. I call it polishing the mirror in real life. There are three of those in the book. Just a touch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's awesome. It is really important that we allow ourselves to feel our emotions and to explore what they mean. Because, like you said, it's really, our body communicating with us, trying to give us a message, and it's really us having those tools and strategies to be able to receive that message. But yeah, I definitely agree with you that it's important that we actually, feel and process our emotions because otherwise it just builds, 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 and builds until it erupts in, super negative, toxic ways. So yeah, that's really important.
It's so true. And, the research shows that those emotions, they really only last 90 seconds. When they approach, they really only last 90 seconds. And if we will acknowledge them and receive the message they're sending, they will dissipate after 90 seconds. But if we don't acknowledge it and we choose to hang on to it, grab onto it and be like, no, I don't want to, however
Yeah.
you want to deal with it. If you don't allow it to serve its purpose, it's not going to dissipate. It's going to get stuck and stay in there and keep trying to come up and cause issues. So yeah, 90 seconds. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, that is wild. I haven't heard that before. But yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
90 seconds. And most people, hang on to stuff for decades. So
Yes.
yeah, when you think about, it could have only lasted 90 seconds, but you've hung on to that and buried that, and now it's lasted decades. And really, if you think about it, you don't even remember what it was about.
Exactly. And you pass it along to your descendants.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is super interesting. So I know that you also talk about resilience. So can you kind of give us your thoughts on resilience? Because I mean, I've interviewed other people and there's so many different perspectives of resilience that really fascinate me because I always thought of resilience as just being one thing, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yes, my friend Blair Kaplan Venables, she is also a co-author of the book Resilience AF, Stories of Resilience. And she talks about resilience as being a muscle. It's something that you practice, that you
Mhm,
use, and that you can build. And I completely agree with that because it's it's not like all of a sudden we go through something and oh, I'm resilient. It's you have to be tested, you have to be tried, you have to be tested, you have to understand how you're going to respond to it. And again, going back to making a choice,
mhm,
make a choice to or decide how you're going to choose to go through something. Are you going to allow it to make you a victim, or are you going to allow it to make you a victor? And so it's something that can be built, it's something that can be learned.
mhm,
And I would say that, with my children, they have learned to build the resilience muscle because of all that they went through. But now they are much more resilient, they're much more responsible, they are much more compassionate and helping, and they have learned so much through what they've been through
mhm.
because they learned to build that resilience muscle. And so I really, really think it's something that we can learn if we choose to allow it to teach us.
I love that. I love that. Resilience is a muscle. I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
use that in the future.
There you go.
So, can you tell us how people can get your new book that's coming out next Friday, and also how they can, contact or follow you?
Absolutely. The official launch date is April 26th because that's the 10th anniversary of the neck injury. I do have a pre-launch happening, so it is available right now,
Mhm,
and you can find that on my website. It's www.getamyshelp. That's GETAMYSHELP.com/book. If
mhm,
you would like to connect with me on the socials, they are all the links are listed on my website, getamyshelp.com, and lots of other stuff that you can find on there. And that's where I list all of my things. So it's a one-stop place where you can find all of the things. I would love to connect with you. I post a lot and I'm very active on the socials. And a lot of people tell me that they feel like they're part of my story because I am just so open and honest about, what I'm going through and what I'm dealing with, that they feel like they're part of it. And so I love that. I really, really love that. And my mission is to help people. Like, I'm currently working on a TEDx talk, and I told my coach, like, this is not going to be about fame or fortune or notoriety. This has to be about helping other people, and that's
mhm.
that's what it needs to be. And so that's my whole mission. And like I said, people have already contacted me since they have read my book saying, I want to use this to help others, and they're asking me for resources. And so I just love that so much. I'm happy to connect with anyone who is willing to reach out to me.
Yeah, sounds great. So we will have all of that information running on the screen and also in the video description below. So you can access that and reach out to Amy and also go grab her book and stay updated on her TEDx talk. I'm excited. I want to make sure I'm able to catch that as well. So Amy, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story and about your book that's coming out. So yeah, thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I just appreciate it so, so much.
Oh, absolutely. And we will definitely have you back when you have a new book coming out.
Oh, I love that. That would be so much fun.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, and that is it for today's episode on Polishing the Mirror, an inspiring journey to empowerment with our special guest, business owner, international bestselling author, inspirational speaker, podcast host, and disabled entrepreneur, Amy Thurman. I want to thank Amy again for joining us today and for sharing her incredible story, wisdom, and insights with us. And please remember to grab a copy of Amy's new book, her memoir, Finding My Hero Within, a journey from incapacitation to empowerment, is on pre-sale now on Amazon and will officially be available on Friday, April 26th, with just the 10th year anniversary of Amy's accident. So be sure to grab yourself a copy. I also want to thank you, beautiful soul, for being here with me today as well. You might not realize it, but you have loved on yourself today by being here to receive whatever it is that you are meant to receive from this episode today. So if you're here with me live, be sure to join me in the next half of the show for Brilliant Connections, where I get to meet you and get to know you, and you're able to ask me any questions that you might have from today's episode topic or the show. If you're catching this on replay, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you'll check out our previous episodes as well on winwinwomen.tv/show/unveil your brilliance, as well as join me next week live. Remember, like 13th century poet Rumi said, when the mirror of my life is polished by your love, the mirror of the world is no longer dull and dark. So start polishing the mirror of your life, break free from those illusions that are holding you back, and unveil your brilliance, bright light. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode next week. My lady's here with me live. I'll see you in just a few seconds.